Hey everybody, Adam here with Hometown Acres. Welcome back to day 4 of the pond build. If you can't tell behind me, the Cat 312 is not running. And the reason for that is we've had 2 straight days of rain. Wouldn't luck have it, when we're planning to do this pond in the middle of August, supposed to be the driest time of the year. We're getting a ton of rain. Not Hurricane Fred, but Tropical Storm Fred is coming up the coast and gonna hit us. So these machines here, we only really got about 3 full days of use out of them for our 7-day rental. And they've been sitting here for the other 4 days. So they're gonna be going back here another day or 2. But I do have some good news that's gonna help offset the cost of these rentals sitting here and not being utilized. So I mentioned in a previous video, we had somebody interested in coming in to buy this topsoil, and they came and looked at it and made us an offer. Now, they said all of this topsoil here, they're gonna leave us because we're gonna need it. But that big mound of topsoil down there, he estimated to be about 1,500 yards. And he offered us 10 grand for that pile of topsoil. And that includes him coming in here, building a road to get his trucks in, bringing his own excavator to bale it out, and hauling it out. Now, like I said, if that's 1,500 yards there, that works out to about $6.67 a yard, which is pretty cheap. I looked up the average price of unscreened topsoil, and it's somewhere between $10 and $20 a yard. However, like I said, he's gonna have all of that expense in building a road to get here, trucking it, bringing in his own equipment to bale it out, all that. So I'm okay letting it go for a little bit under. Plus he's buying it in bulk. I think that $10 to $20 was retail if you're just buying 2 or 3 yards at a time. So I think we're getting a pretty fair price, and we're not going to get taken to the cleaners on what we have to offer. So that money is going to go to help offset some of the cost of the rentals that we have here, especially since they're sitting here idle. We're going to have to get more equipment in here when these ones go back. So that's really going to help us out quite a bit. Now, the point of today's video, since this equipment is sitting here idle because of the rain, we can't really get in and do much with it. What we're going to try to get done today is get our water source down to the pond. Like I said, we're going to try to feed this pond with a spring. So we need to develop that spring head, get that water piped so that it can come down to the pond. And that way we'll have crystal clear, cold water that's going to be feeding this pond. So here is the upper side of the pond, and this is where we're going to try to redirect all of that spring water to. There actually was a spring that was leading in from right over here. We're going to try to develop that one. This one didn't really have a ton of flow to it, maybe a 1/4 gallon a minute, but there's one up over here that produces about a 1/2 gallon a minute. Not real strong springs, but if we can get all of those together and then collect some rainwater runoff as well, we should get some good water feeding this pond. We did come in here with the excavator and started clearing out all these trees so we could get back to these springs. We'll walk back there now and show you where the one spring is that's the stronger producer. All right, so here is our spring head right into that little shale bed. You can see that water just trickling through. Like I said, not a real strong producer. I'll be curious once we get this dammed up, fill it with rock, and get some flow coming out of a pipe to be able to measure it. What we'll do is we'll take a milk jug, a 1 gallon milk jug, put it on the end of that pipe and time how long it takes to fill it up. All right, guys, so we got all of that pipe in. We laid probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 lineal foot of tile. And I tell you what a miserable, wet, rainy, humid, mosquito-y, muddy, mucky, sweaty mess yesterday was. But I tell you what, we really couldn't get anything else done. And it was nice to get something accomplished, and we have something to show for our efforts. But before we talk about how much flow we have coming out of that pipe, I wanted to show you guys kind of the system we put here and where we put solid pipe versus where we put perforated. So this main line that runs down to that swale, this here is a solid pipe because that's what these three different fingers are all running to. So we've got that pipe that runs up the rest this way. That is perforated to catch any kind of groundwater and rainwater runoff. And then you've got this pipe here. This is solid, and that runs directly back up to that spring. And then this pipe here is perforated, and that is to catch, again, any rainwater or groundwater. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, if you've got perforated pipe, you should have put gravel in here. Well, that old timer that's been running that hoe, he's got 1,000 acres. He's a farmer. He does a lot of tiling. He said you can save a lot of money by, instead of putting gravel through the whole thing, backfilling most of it with clay, but in a certain few spots putting gravel, and then putting swales in to direct that water to the gravel so you get your surface runoff into where you want it, and you don't have to spend all of that money to gravel this whole ditch. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at how much flow we're getting out of that spring head. And I wanted to give a full 24 hours for this pipe and all the backfill to get settled in so we could actually get an accurate reading of what this pipe is producing. As you can see, we've got a good little flow coming out of there. Let's go ahead and get an empty milk jug under there and time how long it takes it to fill up. All right, guys, so that worked out to 1 gallon per 4 minutes, or in other terms, a 1/4 gallon per minute. So if we think of that in terms of how much that is going to produce in a year, there is, I'm going to do some quick math on my phone here, 60 minutes in an hour times 24 hours in a day times 365 days in a year. That would be 525,000 gallons a year if it was 1 gallon per year, or 1 gallon per minute. But it's only a 1/4 gallon per minute. So if we multiply that by 0.25, that would work out to about 131 gallons a year that spring is going to produce. Now, I did some other math to figure out the volume of this pond. If it's 100 foot across by 200 feet long by an average depth of about 9 feet, I think it's going to be 4 foot in the shallow end and probably about 12 or 14 foot in the deep end. We'll take an average depth of 9 feet. That works out this pond is going to be about 1.3 million gallons to fill it up. So at that rate of 131,000 gallons per year, it would take us about 10 years to fill this pond up if we were only relying on that spring head. However, that spring head only accounts for what's coming out of this drain tile here. That doesn't account for what's coming down this drain line here. And we've got probably equally as much flow coming out of this line here. So if you double that, that takes us from 10 years down to about 5 years. And that also doesn't factor in any additional rainwater or snow melt that we get or any other additional groundwater that we might pick up. So realistically, I'm thinking that this pond is going to take somewhere between 12 and 24 months to fill up. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up, click that subscribe button. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.